Hello everybody and welcome to another video on Wheeler's Sports Talk. This is going to be an AFL Round 1 roundup. That's not easy to say. But before we get into this, I just want to say thoughts go out to the North Melbourne Footy Club with the passing of a key figure, not only to them, but the game we love. I just want to say rest in peace, Ron Joseph. Thoughts also go out to the friends and family as well. But it was a good start to the F1 Round 1. Richmond versus Carlton. You know, it was a hard-fought footy game. Everyone was complaining, because it ended in a draw, it was boring. I personally think it was far from boring. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think anyone predicted that a draw would be coming, and it just adds to the drama of the sport that we love. And I just think it just, it started the season off really strongly, really, really well. As I said, hard fought, a lot of goals. Well, not too many goals. It was a low scoring game. It was low affair, but when the goals did come in, there were sort of long barrels from sort of outside 50, being able to find targets from inside 50 as well. I just think both teams played well. You had Jack Silvani taking incredible marks as well as Shea Bolton. Dustin Martin, having great vision and doing what he does best. You've got Charlie Curnow kicking some great goals. Both teams defended well. I thought, personally, it was exciting. It had a lot of drama in it. I thought the game was great. And then it only went better from there, because then you've got Geelong versus Collingwood for the second game of round 1. I thought Zach Tui for Geelong was enormous in that game. He kicked 2 straight goals, pretty much off the bat, and Geelong were just dominant. They were leading up by, 22 points. There were a couple of injuries. Tom Stewart I can't remember what he did. Did he do his calf or ankle, didn't he, Tom Stewart? And now he's out. And then Jeremy Howe with a compound fracture on his forearm, so he's out as well. You've got Scott Pendlebury reading the game so well that he always does, with some really nice handball flicks just to set the game up, and also banging a few goals as well. And I really love the battle with Oliver Henry and Darcy Moore. Obviously, Oliver Henry being a former Collingwood player, and then you could just hear the crowd. It just made it electric. Obviously, Oliver Henry kicking some really good goals, and then Darcy Moore having the rundown tackle, before Henry could kick the open goal after Darcy Moore slipped. I just thought that was a hilarious moment. But no, it was a really, really solid game from Geelong and Collingwood. And Collingwood did well to battle back, to be fair. Having been down 22 points to then come back and win it by 21 points, I thought that was a massive, effort. Bobby Hill had a solid game, playing his first match since recovering from testicular cancer. I thought he was good. And then just to go, Geelong allowed him too much space to manoeuvre. What they needed to do was close him down more. Don't give him the opportunity to make a space and dart inside 50, because then he's really going to punish you. He's a strong bloke. He can use his body well, muscular his way through traffic. You can't be allowing someone with Jordan De Goey to do that. And obviously, Patrick Dangerfield, his first captain since Joel Selwood hang the boots up, since becoming a dad. Patrick Dangerfield's taken over as the captaincy role. I think Geelong lacked that presence. It wasn't just the fact what Joel Selwood did on the pitch, where he used to spot targets, and everything like that. He had a presence for the younger guys to be like, there's Joel. We can follow his lead. Patrick Dangerfield sort of tends just to hover around the midfield, and just do rundowns and get the ball. He's sort of present in the middle. So you sort of got, the young guys. There's some experienced players around, but they're lacking that presence of confidence. That's what Joel Selwood brought, that presence, if that makes sense. And then moving on, we've got North Melbourne versus West Coast Eagle. Now, this game, I think this was the most interesting one from round one in the sense that West Coast Eagles, I don't know what it is with them. So Harry Sheasel, he was enormous. Can read the ball so well. He's a magnet for it. A young talent coming through. And well deserved that contract extension. An outstanding halfback. I thought he played exceptionally well. Kelly stood up well when Eagles needed encouragement, as did Liam Ryan. But the thing is, they're the older blokes. You need the younger players to start doing that for West Coast. They're playing their style of footy that won them the Premiership from 2018. Okay? It's now 2023. You have to adapt. You have to move with the game. The game moves on as every year passes. It's not like our football in the UK or soccer, as others call it. Where teams can be, we've got transfer windows and then they progress and then it differs each time. West Coast struggling to progress. I think the reason for that is they're stuck in their old ways that brought them the success. From 2018, and they're just not the team. And primarily, they lost last year's wooden spoons. That isn't great, when you're a former Premiership team of the modern era, of the modern game. I think Adam Simpson, if I was him, I'd be concerned. You have a team that was dominant. As I said, you lost to the previous wooden spooners, who actually, for the most part of that game, played the better football. The Roos were really well organised off the ball. McGovern for the West Coast, he was able to kick the ball from half back aggressively. And obviously Oscar Allen, miss of the year. He had an open goal. He panicked and he kicks the behind. You had an opportunity to kick the goal. It was just... But as I was saying, although Roos were good organised, and there was all this, there was not really much effective ball use from both teams. Not able to really hit their targets. Particularly this first half of the game. I think maybe there was just a few early nerves. Got a lot of young players, in the squads and stuff like that. It's just... I think it was just early nerves and stuff. But I do have to wonder. You've got North Melbourne playing in blue. You've then got West Coast playing in blue and gold. You've then got the umpires in blue. Why? Who thought that was a good idea? Because when you look at it quickly from the camera, the umpires look like the bloody players. Who thought that was a good idea? And now we move on to the Port versus Lions. Horn Francis, he had a great debut, didn't he? He was huge. He was absolutely ginormous. Brisbane were okay in the first half. They were okay. Well, they were hanging on. Port just weren't able to kick the goals, and apply that scoreboard pressure. So Brisbane were able to sort of stay alive a little bit. They were okay first half. Came to the second half, they just seemed getting dominated in centre clearances. And then in defence, they just didn't contest or defend well at all. Just made it too easy for Port to get inside 50 and bang goals. The goal-kicking efficiency did go up in the second half for Port. And it simply wasn't good enough performance. It wasn't. You look at Brisbane, you're thinking, okay, they were quite dominant a couple of years ago. They were looking quite strong. Here, there was just lack of defence, lack of effort, I think. Really, really disappointing. Port were too strong. It'll be interesting to see how their season progresses. Can they keep that run of form going? Because they dominated the midfield. And they were strong in that area. I think they just need to, improve their goal-kicking efficiency. And I think they'll be away. And then moving on, we've got the Demons versus Bulldogs. Bulldogs had good pressure going inside 50, likewise from Melbourne. So it's good, hard-fought footy. It was Yeah, it was interesting. Well, it was similar again to the Richmond Colton game. Really hard forward footy, really pressurising each other. And seeing who would, who would break really. And there was a good foot chase for the footy with Oliver and Smith. I thought that was a good run at the ball. Really hard attacking football. And that's what you want from this game. It's what makes this game great. Is when you see efforts like that, and you got Bontempelli able to kick a goal from a smothered ball. It wasn't just good defending. It wasn't good defending at all. You got the ball, you smothered it, you got to get it out from inside 50. You cannot allow someone of Bontempelli's calibre to be able to kick a goal from a smothered ball in defence. But, it was just... Got to focus, got to stay switched on. The man-on-man positioning was key from both teams. I was saying, really hard fought footy, really trying to outplay the other one, tactically. So I think there was a lot of contested play, played a huge factor, on who could get an advantage in this game. Again, with the marking and everything that I've been saying, Liam Jones got involved with friendly fire in the marking contest. It happens. You get a little of a knock, you get a bump, you sort of... It happens. These things cannot be helped. They are part of the game. And then you got Grundy and Gawn. This is the first sort of time we've seen them, play in the season match. Obviously we've seen them do that, in simulation, in pre-season matches. But to actually see Grundy and Gawn, they linked up very, very well. I was very impressed. So I think the Melbourne Demons, particularly from the ruck, and into half forward positions, they're going to be very, very strong, the Demons. They turned the game around well, the Demons. So I think, again, that was a factor of Grundy and Gawn with that link up, just able to apply extra pressure from centre clearances to half forward, and be able to spot targets, inside 50. Pickett was enormous that game, and it'll be a huge out for the Demons as he was really instrumental with ball use. Obviously, he's got that match ban. I mentioned it in the previous video. I thought he really drove that attacking football. The Bulldogs, they didn't play too badly, in all fairness to them. They were just outclassed by Melbourne, who looked absolutely threatening and commanding of that game. They were able to turn it to their terms. And they just really read, all players, all credit to them, read the game really, really well. So that was all credit to them. And we've got Gold Coast versus Sydney. And Buddy Franklin, he just uses his strength. He's a bit like a Jordan De Goey, to be fair. He just uses his body, uses his strength well. And he just uses it strongly inside 50. I thought Papley was very creative for what he could do with the football during the game. And how he always does it, though. He's very consistent, Papley. Swans very efficient inside 50. Really good at spotting their targets. Gold Coast aren't bad with centre clearances. Able to use quick ball movement. A lot of scoring and knocking the ball forward from both teams. Gold Coast not shutting down the space inside 50. I think it was an interesting game, that one. A lot of hard-fought footy again. I thought it was exciting, that game. I did enjoy watching that match. That was really, really good. And then you got GWS versus Adelaide. This game, I wasn't a fan of this match. I like how the Crows remodelled their midfield. I think in a year or two, there's room for further progression and development. And then I think they could do really well. Giants were poor in defence. So I don't think Adelaide's midfield was tested too much. In the sense, Adelaide could just apply scoreboard pressure. Way too easy to find targets for the Crows inside 50. I mean, we did see a lovely mark from Himmelberg. Oh, it was a great grab. I thought that was absolutely remarkable. I mean, we've seen a lot of good marks coming from round one already. So it'll be interesting to see what we see going into the future rounds. And it was a very nice comeback from the Giants. Although I slagged them off a bit, saying they can't defend and stuff like that. The Crows just switched off second half. They got complacent with what they were doing from the looks of it. And whether the young guys that were putting up, so much pressure just got tired. I don't know. The Crows looked like they could have won that game with ease first half. So it was good fighting comeback from the Giants, and never quit attitude. You just got to wonder, how are those teams going to progress going into round 2? Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And speaking of work, we've got Hawthorn versus Essendon. Essendon started really strong out the blocks, but their defence, again, looks really vulnerable. You got Chad Wingard, superb goal, selling candy, special finish. He just needs to be that consistent most of the time. Because Wingard, he's a great player. I do like him. He lacks consistency in his game. And it's a shame. Young Hawthorn midfield, really, again, I was saying about the Essendon defence, Hawthorn really blowing that open, and showing the weaknesses in that. But having said that, Essendon dominate the centre clearances. Second half, they just worn the young Hawks down. And I think because of that, the Hawks, I think they're going to have a difficult year. I honestly really do. And what about the reception that McDonald, Tip and Woody got when he came onto the ground? And he takes 2 marks inside 50, set shot goals. You love to see that from a guy who hung up the boots from last year and decided, you know what? I'm not done yet. I want to come back. I want to have a crack. I want to have a go. I want to kick some goals. And he did. That reception, honestly, I would have loved to have been there for that game just to hear that roar. I think that was fantastic. And moving on for the last game of round 1, we've got St Kilda versus the Freo Dockers. Frederick with a nice opening goal. Again, I haven't got much to write about this one because, again, I thought the game was boring. St Kilda were really able to kick penetrating balls inside 50 so well. And that's just lack of Freo's pressure. St Kilda were able to do it with ease. I was watching this game, I was just like, Freos are switched off. They're switched off again. This is repetitive. It's repetitive. I mean, the only reason why Freo were there, there was a little bit of pressure, but it was from the forwards trying to press the backs, and then Saints able to give away 2 50-metre penalties from inside, their own defensive 50. You just cannot afford to give away a 100-metre penalty ground, particularly if you're defending and you're inside your own defensive 50. You cannot do that. And they were still able to win the game. There was just strong pressure off them. It was a high pressure game, all credit. It lacked intensity. So this brings me on to where do I see happening in round 2? What can I sort of expect? Well, we've got the Cats versus Carlton. Now, if Zach Tui plays the way that he did against Collingwood, I can see them blowing Carlton out the park. I'm talking like 25-point margin with the Cats. I really see Zach Tui, Dangerfield, those 2 guys particularly standing up, staying strong. Oliver Henry bagging a fair few goals. I see them being threatening against Carlton. And then we've got the Melbourne Demons against the Brisbane Lions. And the Lions are at home at the Gabba. I honestly think they're going to be in trouble. When you've got Grundy, you've got Max Gawn, particularly with the centre clear hit outs, and centre clearances and hit outs, they're going to get dominated. They need to perform better than what they did in round 1. I think they're going to struggle to sort of prove themselves against what looks like a really good, strong side this season. And then we've got Collingwood and Port Adelaide home at the MCG. That will be a fascinating game to watch because obviously Port Adelaide, they did well in the second half with amounting goals and stuff, despite their lack of accuracies against the Lions. I'm interested to see how this game's going to play out. And when, Collingwood are tip favourites to win against Port, I can see that happening. I can see Collingwood beating Port, but I think that's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a lot of end-to-end football. I think it's going to be hard-fought footy, particularly around the centre clearance. I'm excited for that game. And then next we've got Richmond versus Adelaide Crows. I think the Tigers also look strong this year. They did draw against the Blues, which I think should have been a win for them. But Carlton did play fantastically well. Yeah, I think they'll beat the Crows. I was quite how the Crows switched off. Well, a game that looked like they were about to win, mounting all that scoreboard pressure. Yeah, I think Richmond have that one. Then we got Bulldogs versus St Kilda. This match I'm interested in. I am excited for that game. Because both those teams, they played this sort of similar style of football, particularly around the stoppage, and all that pressure and everything like that. I can see this being a really hard-fought football game, and I'm very excited. And then we've got Fremantle Dockers against North Melbourne. Now, I've actually tipped North Melbourne here. So the odds are $117 to Fremantle Dockers to $5.10 for North Melbourne. I tipped North Melbourne here. This is going to be controversial. Let's sit down, grab a cup of tea, get some popcorn. The controversy's out. The reason being, I thought Sheasel was massive. And I was seeing how Freo were playing their game, and I just wasn't that impressed with it. I honestly think if North Melbourne play the game that they did, in round one, I think they got a strong chance of beating Freo. Well, I think it's going to be a close game. I'm not expecting, massive margins. I'm thinking maybe a 5-point win, 3 or 4, margin. But I honestly think North Melbourne, if they can carry on with the momentum they've got going in, I think they'll be good. I honestly think that they'll be okay. And then we've also got Sydney Swans against Hawthorn Hawks. Now, Buddy's out, which I think Hawthorn will be relieved about because I could see them getting into a lot of trouble. But there are other, you got Isaac Heaney, you've got Papley. I honestly think the Swans, they should beat the Hawks. Having seen how the Hawks played their round one game, there needs to be improvement for sure. Absolute 100%. But this game I'm interested in. The Essendon Bombers against Gold Coast Suns. I think that's going to be another hard-fought footy game. I think that's going to be an interesting one for sure. I think the Bombers are favourites, and I think they have reason to be. Just because of McDonald, Tip and Woody coming back. I think Essendon have a chance of doing really well here. I honestly really do. And then you've got West Coast versus the Giants. I honestly think, again, a close game. I've gone with the Giants on the basis of that. I'm just not impressed with the Eagles at the moment. I wasn't impressed with them over COVID, when they really struggled as a cohesive unit. They're struggling again. Nothing's changed with them. Nothing's progressed. Nothing's developed. Whereas you see the Giants, they develop, they get so far, they redevelop themselves again. They're trying and trying and trying. And I love that effort of them keep going, keep grinding away. And yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. And I can't wait to see what else occurs this season. Because I think it's going to be a great, great year for Aussie rules. On that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.